Let's get ready to ramble. Today, I'm going to talk about Native American traditional marriage. Now, it's been said that when I married my first husband, Bud, that he took my last name, which he did, as a stage name, not as a legal name, because our contemporary Christian system would not allow that. But most Native American tribes were matrilineal. They were a matriarchy, not a patriarchy. So there was never a dowry or giving away your daughter, the father giving away his daughter in the marriage. There were no arranged marriages. Women were not seen as property. Women were revered. Women had control. Instead of lineage being passed down from father to son, etc., it was passed down from mother to daughter, etc. That's what matrilineal means. So, as far as the stage name, Bud did take my last name, Bud Lee, but on paper, I could not do that, and that was not really what we had intended to do anyway. He's not, never was. I'm trying to live in two cultures. The culture that is my DNA and the culture that I find myself trying to get along with now. So that's the best I could do. As far as marriage traditions, the first time I saw a wedding, a traditional Native American wedding, was the first time my son danced. And it consisted, because every tribe is different, every tribe has their unique traditions. But this particular wedding consisted of hand tying, where one hand was loosely tied to one of the other person's hand. And they were both wrapped in one blanket. So they were protected with one blanket. They were married for 7 years, so after 7 years, they could decide to renew their vows or decide to go separate ways. Now, when it comes to divorce, traditionally, the woman, if she wanted a divorce, she would simply put her husband's items outside of the house. If they were Plains tribes, it would be outside of the teepee. If they were Cherokee, it would be outside of the cabin. So that's all that was needed for a divorce, is to say, you don't live here anymore, basically. And I thought that was very interesting, watching the wedding at the first Sundance that I danced. Very fascinating. And a lot of people have misconceptions, about everything pretty much with Native American culture, which is understandable because, we're not taught it in schools. Most of our culture was illegal until 1978, the year I graduated from high school. The Indian Religious Freedom Act is what allowed our religion to be legal in this country that was founded on freedom of religion. And that included a lot of our culture, like powwows, because when we're dancing, we're praying. Our dances are prayers. So religious ceremonies include weddings. So a lot of our traditional weddings were forbidden. So, as well as our matriarchy, this is a patriarchy, and they didn't like the fact that women had power and control. As a matter of fact, when the settlers the colonizers, first came to discuss business matters with the natives, they said, send forth your leaders, and we sent forth our women that were our leaders, our chiefs, and they said, no, we want to talk to the men that are in charge. And so in a lot of the journals, they will say that these tribes had panty waist governments. They didn't understand, first of all, that they were not ran by any one particular person. These were democracies. In fact, the Iroquois Confederacy is basically what our Constitution is based on. That's where we get the three branches of government, is from the Iroquois Nation and the 5 civilized tribes in the Northeast. So they weren't used to that, of course. They were used to a patriarchal monarchy, which, and that's why you get so many times you hear Native American princess, and Native Americans are like, there's no such thing. There's no kings. There's no royalty. Just because your dad's the chief or your mom's the chief doesn't mean you get to be special. Doesn't mean you're a princess. Doesn't mean you're going to be the chief when he passes or she passes. No. These positions were given and held on merit. And if somebody didn't deserve it, if they didn't deserve the respect and the honor of the position, they didn't have it. So many times it was all to the women. Many tribes had what they called wartime chiefs, and those were always women chiefs. When it was time to go to war, the women had to agree. The women were very integral. If they did not agree, the war was not done. If the female war chief did not get the women's approval, they did not go to war, because the women were going to be losing their husbands, their sons, the people who were going to go hunt and protect them. So they had to agree that this war was just and worthy of fighting. Otherwise, just let bygones be bygones and get along, fellas. And that's basically what the whole native strength system is about. Because if you are fighting with yourself because you're an unhappy person, you're obviously going to fight with everybody around you. But if you're very forgiving with yourself, even when you've made a mistake or the same mistake again and again, you don't put yourself down. You don't listen to those fear feeder voices. Then it's much easier to treat others the same way. You don't have to judge others and put them down to make yourself feel better, because you make the same mistakes too, and it's okay. We're all human. Anyway, I've rambled enough, so thank you for listening.